Hello and welcome back to Meanwhile in the Falklands. Today you've got Caiti,
Thomas Stockton
and Hannah Newton.
So we have had a very exciting week, but first of all, if you are joining us on iTunes and SoundCloud, then you're miles ahead of the rest and well done. We now have it online. Hannah's been working hard at it all week. Woo! Do you want to tell us a bit about it?
Super duper hard work. No, it hasn't. It hasn't been that hard work, but now we're online on iTunes. So if you search FITV, you can find us. If you search Meanwhile in the Falklands, you can find us on iTunes. Also, you can find us on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/Falklands TV.
Amazing.
And when we say hard at work, she was actually hard at work. If you go onto any of them and you look at the descriptions, Hannah was listening through every podcast because we had the beta phase, we had like 11 episodes. She went through, listened to all of them to give you guys the wonderfully colourful description
of what's going on in each podcast.
So now, if you're out and about driving in the car, or if you're walking to school or work, then you can listen to our lovely voices and hear all about what's going on in the Falklands.
You can listen to us all the time.
I'm 100% sure my voice is what you want to listen to.
Yeah.
Do you have ears? Come on.
So let's kick today's podcast off by talking about the free base, which I know that you guys know a bit more about than me.
So Frey Base in Antarctica. So for those of you that might not know too much about Antarctica, we're bloody close to it down here. So the Frey Base is essentially the first port of call if you're in South America and you want to do any tours down in Antarctica. The Frey Base is like literally the first base you arrive at. It's almost like the gatehouse, let's call it, and it's run by the Chilean Navy. And there was a fire at the Harbour Master's building, an electrical fire, completely destroyed it. Like 6 or 7 people were housed in that home.
What will happen next then? Where will people go if they're stopping off? Obviously it'll take a while to rebuild it and stuff. What will happen next?
So the accommodation for people who come through, such as tourists, is absolutely fine, but the harbour master and the crew that lived in that home, they're being housed with some of the scientific researchers at the moment. And
what's the name of that building, Thomas? Can you tell me?
It's Julio.
You can watch the bloopers on Falklands in Focus this week to understand that one.
Yeah, Hannah and I had a small debate.
Julio conversation.
Yeah, she was like, it's not Julio, it's Julio. And I was like, it's Chilean.
But the building's named after some sort of scientist who was called Julio something.
Yeah, not Julio something.
Yeah, if you're thinking that we're gabbing on a lot about nothing.
Just watch Falklands in Focus and you will get it. But apparently there was a lot of praise given for like the emergency services down there who did manage to put the fire out very quickly. The alarms were raised, so no one was hurt, and no one received any like injuries of any kind. Which just
because you'd think it would take a while, because that's in the middle of nowhere. You think it'd take a while for emergency services to go there and sort it all out.
Definitely.
They were really on the ball. So we'll be chasing that up in the next couple of weeks as we hear about whether there are any plans when the plans to rebuild the building are actually released.
We had our own emergency
services.
service moment down here, didn't we, this week? Oh, and here come our drinks. Perfect.
Here come our drinks and our hot chocolate for Caiti.
Thank you very much.
There we go. Thank you very much, mate. Cheers.
So we had our own emergency service problem this week, and the emergency services down here were on the ball as always, weren't they? So Hannah, you were at that one, weren't you?
Yes, I was, for all of 2.5-3 hours, standing out in the cold.
Well, can we just say how it started? How you ended up down there?
I was giving Caiti a lift to the hospital, and all of a sudden there was a load of police and fire, almost like a blockade on the road, and you couldn't get through town, the centre of town in Sandy, and we thought, oh, this is a bit strange. Luckily, Caiti managed to jump in the car in front of us, who was Steve, our boss. He took her to the hospital. I had to quickly jump out, run down an icy road that was a hill that was about, I don't know.
Let's call it a 30-degree
Yeah, like a 30-degree. It was a bit like San Francisco, and film. And it involved me waiting around, filming on my phone for ages and ages, all these police and fire people standing about.
But why were you having to film?
Well, it turns out that there was a bit of a bomb scare. They thought it might be an ordnance. So we had to wait. Yeah. We had to wait for the military to come down, because here it's quite a common thing to
Well, since the
It's
war.
not like
Since
if you
the
found
war.
something like that in the UK, which it'd be very random. Down here, it is actually something that could happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of mines and
Yeah.
there's a lot of unexploded things hidden in places.
Well,
so.
the big thing I heard after is that the place where they cordoned off, Crozier Place, in 1982 during the war, that was a weapons depot for the Argentines when they took over Stanley. That's where they used to leave like all their weapons and their extra ammunition and their landmines and all that, and which is why it was such a actually. It could
be a
potentially
serious
be a bomb, but
Well, after 2.5 hours of waiting, it turned out that it was rusted brake plates from an old Land Rover or something. So I was like, okay, cool. But it's all very interesting.
Big
didn't
sigh
it?
of
How,
relief
like,
from everybody, I think, with that one.
the big like live reporting side of it, like quick, because nothing really ever happens that drastic.
yeah. But I mean, the good thing
yeah.
as reporters down here is that you know the emergency. Not the guys up at the military base who came down to do it, the EOD guys, but the local guys. You know, because I mean, you were just chatting away with some of the police officers, getting a bit more of an idea of what was going on.
I think because there's quite a small team of police officers here, you get to know them very well, and you see the same faces all the time. And also, because Stanley's quite small in itself, you see them out and about. Especially in our job, we interview them quite a lot, and they're all really nice guys.
They are,
like
which I think is why-
you saw them as well by accident on Thursday morning, didn't
I
you?
did, so I had a bit of a moment. I feel like I styled it out quite cool, but I went into what I thought was a minerals committee meeting. I had the notes very much on display.
all prepared to listen about the
About
future of oil in the Falklands.
Yeah, I was ready for it. I had a question already, sat down, and two policemen come in, and I just sort of thought, okay, well, maybe they've got something to do with it. And then they started talking about police matters, and I was like, I am in the wrong meeting. So there had been a change in schedule, but no, it was one of the committee meetings that go on, which actually is quite a good idea down here, because I think it's open for any of the public to go. Not that many do tend to. We've all sort of noticed that, haven't we? That
Well, because I've sent you to a couple recently where they were like, oh, no one's ever attended this, public or press.
yeah, so it's been quite funny.
It's good for stories, though. I think it's a great place to find out about things that you wouldn't normally go on, like the workings of how a small town works. You wouldn't think about it living in a small town. You kind of think, unless you're into politics or you're really invested in your community, you wouldn't think what makes things work.
And
How-
that's the thing, having, in all of these committee meetings, there's a member of the Legislative Assembly that sit on it, isn't it? And I think
Yeah.
it's them being there are people who are interested in politics and in the committee, which I think is how we as a community get to find out more about it.
But it's what goes on behind closed doors, isn't it? You kind of think everything runs quite smoothly and you don't have to worry about it, and it's not your
Well,
your
if one
issue.
of the
But
Emilys
actually,
have
if you're
their way.
interested- it's quite interesting to see how it all works with each other and how it all kind of tips about.
Well, that was one of the big things in the general election last year. Pretty much in every manifesto for people like the people who ran for MLA, they were talking about the fact that the government procedures needed to be more open. The public needed to have a better understanding of why so many things went out for like tenure and nothing happened, and how many people you had come down here and say, oh yeah, so a new port facility, we're going to look at it and we're going to spend thousands and thousands of pounds on getting this guy to look at whether a port facility is possible, and then all of a sudden we don't hear about it anymore. And that was one of the big things. It was about transparency within government, and I think you've got a couple of MLAs at the moment who are really trying to push that.
Mark Pollard actually, he one of the MLAs, he posted on the Falkland Islands community board on Facebook saying that he was all for having a bit more of an open government and allowing the public to come in of an evening to Gilbert House where the MLAs sit and work and see how government works and what they actually do. Because they're all there and you see them in the paper and you hear about them here, there and ever, but how do they physically make change and make things happen?
What power do they actually have? 'Cause
Exactly.
They're not career politicians. They're local people who run to be able to give their input in how the country that they love is run, and it's really interesting to see how that job. Because I mean, in the UK, politicians, as we know, they're career politicians. They go into it with this in
But
mind.
they're also
Well,
quite disconnected from the community, I'd say, some of the UK ones that aren't,
Because there's pros and
aren't in
cons.
touch.
There's
with
pros and
them.
cons to both sides, and it's as you say, it's like a town council running a full country.
Absolutely.
There's definitely pros
Truly
and cons.
invested, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? They're because a lot of them were born and bred Falkland Islands, and even if they're not, they've been here a while. They know what goes on. They care about the
Passionate about
community.
it.
There's no, I don't know whether you guys find this, but here I don't find there's much in terms of social classes and social hierarchies as much,
No, not as much,
as in the
no.
UK.
No,
There's
not
a
as
lot
much.
more in the UK. There's more of a divide between social
Yeah.
social hierarchies, whereas here everyone knows everyone.
And you sort of see that with the number of, I'm going to call them quiet millionaires. The
Yes.
number of people, just your average Joe down the road, and you're someone who goes, like, he's the richest man in the Falklands. And you're like, what? He's
never
like, he's
know.
close to being a billionaire with the company that
But
he
you
owns.
never know. Everyone's so humble here, and everyone's so
Absolutely.
open to being friends with everyone, which I think is quite nice. And the same with the MLAs. Like, you can.
I mean,
you
posting
can
on
talk to
Facebook,
them.
for goodness sake.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
Like,
it's amazing.
You never get that in the UK, that close relationship with your MPs or your MLAs here. Like,
Well, speaking about their presence on social media, I'm just going to give a complete shameless plug right now. If you subscribe to Falklands in Focus on our website, you can go back and look at our coverage from the general election, where Chris and I did an in-depth piece over like the candidates using social media to interact with the public and how that would potentially affect
that is
who got voted in.
interesting.
And like our predictions, we were only 2 off in the end. 6 of the 8 we got right based on social media presence.
There we
and
go.
I thought, I don't know if it had a connection.
should have had some money on that.
I'm not a betting man. But
yes.
having brought up social media, we did see
We
one
do
of
have
the
a very
funniest things
important.
this morning.
We do have a very important person
Oh, God.
making his debut into Facebook at the moment. Or is it his debut?
Is it his debut? Boom. Who is it? Katie, you want to tell us about that? Because you had the friend request this morning.
So I came into work this morning with a friend request from the Governor, Nigel Phillips. Click on the page and there's photographs of him, quite a few, the Falkland Islands flag. It looked like a very legitimate page. I hit confirm, not really thinking too much about it, and then go
Just
straight...
going, oh wait, look at me. Governor wants to be my friend.
Go onto the Falkland Islands Community Board and there's a post of a conversation that this supposed governor had with someone else down here, and she'd been smart enough to ask a security question. This is absolutely not the governor. This is somebody having a bit of a joke. It's a little bit naughty, isn't it?
I don't know, would the governor have Facebook? I would have thought the governor wouldn't even have a Facebook. He'd have a PR team maybe who
And this is the thing. As much as people listening from outside the Falklands might go, that was preposterous. How could you ever potentially think that was the governor? But having just spoken about what we've just spoken
the
about,
MLAs
how
all have
open it is,
Facebook,
they
and
all-
everyone's friends with them on
Yeah,
Facebook.
And like
Absolutely.
Facebook is actually the number one port of call of things. Like the most viewed video that we've ever had was a video a couple weeks ago about people being arrested for potential possession of drugs, where we quickly filmed it on our phone outside of the police station and posted it onto Facebook.
Yeah.
Like Facebook is one of the number one ports for like news and what. I haven't spoken about the governor and the government. I think the other big thing going on this week is flights here can be a little bit complicated, can't they, guys? Getting in and out of the
certainly
islands. So Bryce Norton, where the RAF base Bryce Norton, where the MOD fly to the Falklands from, are having their runway closed at weekends
So
for
they
like
do
the
the
next
runway
month.
maintenance light
Yeah.
maintenance or something. They've got to change the lights on the runway, which is the gist, which means
It's going to take
a
them
lot of the flights
all
they're
month.
having to fly to the Falklands from Birmingham.
Birmingham International instead. Yeah.
And that
Which
is
is-
right when Hannah's going home, isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly. So it's not very convenient for me because I live in Surrey and Oxford is not
Right
too
round
far
the corner.
away. Whereas Birmingham, on the other hand, is a bit more of a trek. But hey ho, hopefully the airport's nice. And a little bit, there might be more refreshments, more cafes. And
There'll
stuff.
be more
A bit
entertainment than
comfortable.
there is at RAF
Yeah.
Brighton, absolutely. Though you are flying at the same time, so it will still be a midnight flight down to the Falklands,
Yeah.
won't it? So
Hooray.
yay for check-ins. But we were talking a lot about flights amongst us this week because we've been setting out our trips to the outer islands. So the Falklands is made up of over 740 different islands, which you don't actually really think about until you look at a map and realise quite how many there are. And there's quite an array of wildlife at all of them. So we were looking at, we're going there in November this year, October,
And we
November
were looking
this
at the
year.
flights because the islands. It's funny when you come down here, you kind of, as a contractor, I came down assuming that everything was round the corner and really cheap to get to and whatnot. But actually, in order to fly from one island to another, you're looking at. I mean, you were quoted, weren't you, Katie?
Yes, because
For a couple
at the
of
time
flights.
that we're going away, my dad and stepmom were actually coming down to visit, and I was hoping that they could come with me, and it was £970 each for flights, accommodation, and 2 day trips.
For 3 days.
For
isn't
3
that?
nights.
For
There's
3 nights.
3 nights, a return flight,
Yep.
2-day trips, and it was close to £1,000.
£1,000
And this is it. And bringing us back round to the government part we were talking about earlier, the flights are so heavily subsidised, even the internal ones are so heavily subsidised by the government, yet it still costs so much.
But you've got to think of all the fuel and the stopovers and stuff, and even with the flights here, the internal flights going to different islands, you've still got these, they're almost like, and I'm probably going to be wrong in my technicalities, like they look like prop planes to me, and they seat 6 people.
Britain Normans,
how
you want
many
to
people
Google
do
them.
they seat? Like 6, including the
pilots, and I would say co-pilot, but there's no co-pilot. So it's pilot, 1 person next to him and 4 behind him, so 6 including the pilot.
There's a lot of demand, I can imagine, for seats on the plane as well. Hence that probably whacks the price up a bit.
The main reason for the flights and the subsidy by the government is so that they can fly freight and everything else to the outer islands for the people who live on those settlements, and being able to go on the plane and fly there is sort of almost just like an added bonus. The planes aren't there for tourists. That's not what they're there for. That's not where they get any money. Their money comes from the government for that. It's just sort of an added thing. So I can sort of see why the prices would be so high, but at the same time, it's exactly what you said earlier. It's not what you expect when you come down.
But that's the thing. You don't think that you can I kind of assumed you could come here and just get out your front door, walk to all the different places.
Yeah.
Stupidly, I thought that because I didn't know much about the Falklands. I don't think many people do, especially in the UK.
Well, that's why you can listen to our podcast and find out more.
Exactly that. I think the country is going in the right direction with it. They're putting more and more emphasis on tourism as an industry. They understand that it doesn't make up a very large part of their GDP, but they do realise how important it is, especially like sort of as putting your name out there as this right for self-determination and things like that. So that will take us on to next week, actually.
I was going to say we've got the tourist board
committee meeting next week.
So hopefully we'll
Let's
hear a
talk
bit more
about what's coming up all next week. So we've got the tourist board committee meeting, which we can talk about that, but also Paul is back.
Yeah. I am happy. So we've had a couple of weeks without her, and there's been quite a lot on our plates, and
we've actually surprisingly found a lot of stories for a winter dry time.
We've been luckily quite busy, haven't
really
we? Which
busy.
I think has made life easier without having Paula
and I think the show's actually personally been quite good. I think it's interesting, a variety of stories.
And I think this is the 3rd show we've done without her, the one that comes out today. And I honestly think it's the best one we've done so far. I rewatched it earlier, and I think there's a really nice photo.
Out of the 3, yeah.
So self
Not
five
saying
guys.
we don't need Paula, because we do.
I am looking forward to her coming back and giving us a hand with some of the workload, and it's just that the amount of research that goes into some stories.
That you don't realise that she does that sort of thing.
Absolutely. But there are quite a few things coming up next week. So there's a big court case on Tuesday for the possession and intent to supply
cocaine and cannabis.
Yeah,
so that's quite an interesting
Which I'm interested to just find out how they got cocaine here. Cannabis, sort of, I can get, maybe they grew it, but how on earth they got cocaine here? So I'm looking forward to that
court case. It's a real question, yeah.
But the big thing is Thursday morning, isn't it?
Yeah, which I understand you guys spoke about a bit last week.
The Legislative Assembly and the motion for assisted dying.
Yes, sorry, I had a face that probably looked like I didn't know what was going on. But
that happens quite a lot, guys.
The assisted dying, it's the debate with the MLAs this time round,
that's quite a big
them
one,
actually all discussing it, and we can sit in on that, which would be interesting, because the public meeting went really, really well, and there was, I think we mentioned it last week, but there was a straw poll and about 80% of people were actually for the motion.
So we'll be able to tell you next week on the podcast what happened.
What happened in that assembly meeting? Because Barry Ellsby and Leona Roberts are both obviously proposing the motion, and we're going to find out about the other 6 MLAs and what they think about it.
But I think obviously here, like, with laws and stuff that are actually going through, it takes a very long time because there's such small manpower behind the government. There's only 6 MLAs.
But this is the first official
step. So this is just then having a discussion amongst themselves and seeing where they all stand, because we don't know where the rest of the members stand at this point. So.
And they'll have specific opinions about it, and it'll be very interesting to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, and we'll tell all of you what happens next week. But in the meantime, if you want to hear more from us, which I'm sure you do, then you can go on to fitv.co.uk, where you can go to our channel and subscribe to Falklands in Focus.
Where you can watch the amazing programme that we've put out this week. Just saying.
And then you'll know what we're actually talking about about on this podcast.
Julia.
As well, you can go to Instagram and subscribe to us there, and Facebook, because we give you little insider bits of gossip during the week. And Hannah, what do you have to say?
I have big things to say, and also you can download iTunes and watch us on iTunes. If you type in watch us, listen to us, here we go, or watch, no you can't watch us on iTunes. You can listen to us on iTunes, but maybe eventually you might be able to watch us on iTunes.
You never know.
That might be the next step.
But for now, you can get us there on iTunes and on SoundCloud to listen to our podcast on the go.
And make sure you read all of Hannah's wonderful descriptions.
Yeah, that
because
took
she
me
spent
so
a
long
lot
to
of
do,
time
so if you
doing
don't
it.
read them, nobody likes
And
them.
rate
I'm
us
gonna be
5
very
stars.
cross.
We'd love some 5 stars in there.
I was going to say, any ratings on iTunes, I'm going to be completely shameless right now and say, please do it. Please do it. Get
Let us know.
us off the ground.
Give us some advice on how we can improve, all that sort of fun stuff. But anyway, we shall see you right here next week.
And hopefully with Paula.
Yay!
Hey.
Bye!
Bye.